Yeah, good afternoon, Anandar. In the previous class, we discussed uh, the social phenomena of linguistic structure, and in that we discussed what is the origin of this social crystallization, and actually how this is socially coordinated and associated language was originated, and how the speech is different from the language. So that the speech is individual's product or individual's creativity, we can say. But the language is not the function of the speaker. Language is not the function of the speaker. It is the product passively registered by the individual. It is the product passively registered by the individual. So we can say, we can feel that there is a big cauldron, Gundiga antaru, binde, peద్ద binde, Gundiga. In that cauldron, all the individuals contributed something to that. Then that individual speech became the language now with by the contribution from all the people. And now this language, this individual act of speech, okay, which is registered in the mind of the individuals passively as in the cauldron. Now that individual speech shares some common features. What may be abstract grammatical rules of the language? Abstract grammatical rules of the language. Oh, okay. When we try to define or when we try to study the language, we should not confine ourselves to the individual act of speech. We should consider the social phenomena of the language. That's what we discussed in the previous class. Okay. Now, this language as a structured system. Language as a structured system shares some common features, or we can say characteristics. Now let us see what are those characteristics. Amid the desperate mass of facts involved in the language, it stands out as well as a defined entity. You see, among the facts of the language, if you take the word elephant, okay, there are many aspects for that. In that elephant, there is a sound. There is a sound pattern. And at the same time, there is an image. At the same time, there is a phonological unit, you can say. And at the same time, a psychological sense, we can say. Likewise, there are different aspects. If you take a single word, in the same manner, if you consider the language, there are many facts about language. There are many facts about language. So amid the desperate mass of facts, among the facts regarding the language involved in this language, it stands out as a well-defined entity. It stands as a well-defined entity, which stands the linguistic structure. Already we discussed some examples. Articulated sounds, auditory impressions, speech and thought, individual act of language, and a social aspect. And we discussed language as an established system and language as evaluation. In such a way, there are many aspects related. There are many facts about this language. Among them, the linguistic structure is independent and well-defined entity. Linguistic structure is well-defined entity, right? That's why it can be localized in that particular section of the speech circuit. This linguistic structure can be localized in that particular section of the speech circuit where sound patterns are associated with concepts. Okay, when the sound patterns are associated with concepts, when an idea is transmitted into a particular code, when an idea or a feeling or a sense is transmitted into a code in our brain, in that process, we strictly follow linguistic structure. In that process, we strictly follow linguistic structure, right? That's why, yeah. So the social part of language, external to the individual. Social part of language is external to the individual because in a group or in conversations, we can't expect or we can't predict what we have to speak. Okay, it is if it is a task to speak within ourselves or to speak by our own, then surely we may express our feelings. But this social part of language is external to the individual, who by himself is powerless either to create it or to modify it. Try to understand this point carefully. When you use the language which is social aspect, then you do not have any power either to create or to modify that language. Either to create or to modify that language. But you may have a doubt. Okay, in the poetry and in other literary genres, the poets may use their creativity to express. You may have this doubt. Surely, that is the individual act of speech. Whatever they feel, they may express. Whatever they thought, they may express. That's why surely that may be considered as individual act of speech. Here, in the social aspect, we do not have any power to create the language or to modify the language. To create the language and to modify the language. Okay, what is provided by the society, what is existing in the society, that's what we have to use. Okay, instead of good morning in the morning, if you want to say good night, that is not suitable. You can't create like that, you can't modify like that. Instead of saying good morning, okay, you can't use any other word, of course. Happy death day, happy birthday, like that you can't say. You can't modify. Okay, instead of good morning, you can use the only expression which is socially acceptable, right? So it is the social part of language, external to the individual, who by himself is powerless either to create it or to modify it, right? Now, another point, that is, it exists only in the virtue of a kind of contract agreed between the members of the community. Okay, this language exists only social aspects. The language as a structured system. The language as a structured system exists only in virtue of a kind of contract agreed between the members of the community. Whatever we use, whatever the language that exists in our, whatever the language which we may consider social phenomena, or this social phenomenon language, okay, can be can be a contract, or it may be a contract agreed, already agreed among the members of the society, among the members of the community. That is the language. Okay, so try to understand the fact. Already there is a there is a community of speech. There is a language community, we can say. That language community already agreed. They agreed a contract regarding this language. Okay, so whatever we use as a language, that is already contract agreed among the members of the community, among the members of the community. Okay, so that's why you have to learn all the rules. That's why you have to learn grammar points, or else without following any grammar you can speak. If it is not so, if it is not social phenomena, right? That's why it is already a contract agreed between the members of the community, right? The individual needs an apprenticeship. Individuals individual needs an apprenticeship in order to acquaint himself with its working. So what is apprenticeship? It is a sort of training. It is a sort of training. So the individual needs an apprenticeship in order to acquaint himself with its working. The individual needs some training. Individual is needed to be trained. Individual needs to be trained to acquaint himself with this language. Working language. Okay, if I make you understand how to wish in the morning, okay, then I may tell you good morning. Okay, then by listening this, you may practice. You may get some training how to wish in the morning. How to wish in the morning, right? In such a way, the individual needs an apprenticeship in order to acquaint himself with its working language, with its working, right? So this is we can say another fact is a language system as a distinct from speech is an object that may be studied independently. The language system can be studied independently. This language system is an object that may be studied independently. So this language system, or the well-structured system, is the object. Try to understand. Our topic is object of study. He is going to present what is the object of study. Now, almost he come to conclusion. Of course, still a few points are to be explained. He come to the conclusion that a language system is an object. A language system is an object that may be studied independently. Okay, independent study is important here. Okay, if it is not an independent study, we can have many facts. There are many facts regarding the language, but they're all dependent. But here, language as a structured system is an object that may be studied independently. Right? So, what is the important, what is the permanent? Is a speech or is a social aspect of language? Surely the social aspect of language. Okay, or we can say even sometimes even the social aspect of language may not be permanent. in case of dead languages. In case of dead languages, because the people stop to use that language. What is dead language? The language which is no more in usage, or the language which is no more spoken. That is dead language. Though it is, if it is not spoken, then it lost its social aspect. It may lose its social aspect. But what is permanent? Surely in that language, the linguistic structure is permanent. The linguistic structure is permanent, right? So a language system is an object that may be studied independently. Dead languages are no longer spoken, but we can perfectly well acquaint ourselves with their linguistic structure. Still, we can study the linguistic structure of those dead languages. The linguistic structure of those dead languages. So, while language in general is heterogeneous, heterogeneous means diverse, different aspects. Even within Telugu, there are different slangs. Okay, different set of vocabulary. Even we can find different dialects in Telugu language. So, while language in general is heterogeneous, that is diverse, different. A language system is homogeneous in nature, but the language system is homogeneous. In Telugu, all the time the grammar is same, because the structure is common. The structure of the language is same. Okay, based on the structure, all the grammatical points we may study. So, what is the permanent? What is the independent? Surely the structure of the language. Okay, we can say linguistic structure. So, while language in general is heterogeneous, a language system is okay. Language is heterogeneous, but language system is homogeneous in its nature. Homogeneous means same kind, right? So, linguistic structure is no less real than the speech. Linguistic structure is no less real than speech. How far the speech is real, in the same manner, the linguistic structure is also real. Okay, so the linguistic structure is as real as the speech. Linguistic structure is as real as the speech. That is very important thing, dear students. Okay, he contemplated the abstract linguistic structure, and he equated that abstract linguistic structure with concrete speech. He says that the linguistic structure is as real as the speech is. Okay, so linguistic signs, although essentially psychological, are not abstractions. Linguistic sign, of course, it is psychological. Okay, though it is psychological, it is not abstract. Generally, we feel that the psychological things are abstract things. Psychological things are abstract things. But here in this case, linguistic signs are not abstractions. They are real. Linguistic signs are real, not abstractions. The associations, next point, the associations ratified by collective agreement. The association between the linguistic sign and the concept. The association between the linguistic sign and the concept. Such associations were ratified by the collective agreement. By the collective agreement. What is ratification? It is acceptance by the collective agreement. By the collective agreement. A number of people collectively agreed to sides. Number of people collectively agreed those sides. That is, association ratified by collective agreement, which goes to make up the language. Okay, or realities localized in the brain. Okay, such associations go to make up the language. Go to make up the language. Such associations are realities localized in our brain. Localized in our brain, right? So linguistic signs are tangible. That means touchable. Linguistic signs are tangible. That is touchable. Writing can fix them in conventional images. How it is how the language signs are tangible. How the language signs are tangible? Because we can write those linguistic signs on paper. We can write those linguistic signs on any substance, right? That's why writing can fix them in conventional images. Writing can fix them in conventional images, right? So the utterance of another point, the utterance of a word involves an infinite number of muscular movements, extremely difficult to examine and to represent. The utterance of a word. In uttering a word, there are many muscular movements involved. Not only my lips, not only my teeth, not only my tongue. There are many muscular movements from our cheek, from our head, okay, from our eye, everywhere. There are number of muscular movements, infinite number of muscular movements, okay, which may be the part in this utterance of sound. In this utterance of sound, okay, they are surely difficult to examine. They are surely difficult to examine and to represent. They are surely difficult to examine and to represent. All the muscular movements can't be examined. All the muscular movements can't be represented. Okay, in vowels and consonants, we represented how certain parts of our organs of speech, certain organs of our speech may move, may work towards the utterance of the sound. But here, there are other muscular movements which can't be expressed, which can't be examined and represented, but they involve in utterance of sound. So, in linguistic structure, there is only the sound pattern. In linguistic structure, there is only the sound pattern. Okay, what is the verb, what is the subject, and what is the object, and what are the words that may form a particular sentence structure. So, in linguistic structure, there is only the sound pattern, right? So, a language is a repository of sound patterns, and the writing is a tangible form. Repository. A language is a repository of sound patterns, It is the collection of sound patterns. It is a cauldron of sound patterns. Though they are abstract, though they are abstract, but the writing is their tangible form. Okay, when this linguistic signs are tangible, when these linguistic signs are tangible, when we write something, when we write those signs on paper, when we write those signs on paper, surely those signs are tangible. Okay, touchable we can say. Okay, need not to touch with the hand. Even our eyes can perceive. Our eyes can perceive, right? These are the characteristics of language as a structured system. We are considering language as a structured system. Okay, from linguistic structure point of view, we are discussing from linguistic structure point of view. That's why it is very important, dear students. Okay, so up to now, in the social aspect of language, we discussed how this social aspect of language was originated. Okay, it is not a direct contribution of an individual. It is the contribution of many individuals. Almost all the individuals of the speech community. Yeah, then based on that, again, these all the collected samples were studied and some set of rules were formulated. Now we are following those rules by following exact sentence structure, right? So this linguistic structure is important. Now almost he come to a point. Now what is the object of study? What is the object of study? That means in while studying a language, what a linguist must study? What a linguist must study? Surely the linguist first study the linguistic structure of the language. The linguistic structure of the language. That is the point here, these students. Okay, so in the next class, we shall discuss languages and their place in human affairs. In human affairs, you know, language. Here, we are going to study the language. Before that, there are so many academic disciplines which are human affairs. Okay, to climb, actually why we are studying this, to climb the language is also an academic discipline. To climb the study of language is also an academic discipline. We are trying to place the language in a among the social among the human affairs, among the human affairs. Now this is also one phenomenon. Language is also a phenomenon, social phenomenon of the human life. That's why, like all other human affairs, such as economics, politics, and this science, that is life sciences, basic sciences such as history, physics, chemistry, and other sciences such as history, anthropology, sociology. Among them, this study of language, that is linguistics, is also a science. This is what we are going to know at the end of this topic, right? So these scholars, they proposed different purposes, but this Ferdinand de Saussure made a reasonable investigation, and he succeeded to bring a concretized idea, to conclude, to resolve that in case of language,